The training grounds of El Dragon Academy are anything but forgiving, harsher than most could ever imagine, designed to forge warriors from the youngest souls. At this very moment, trembling children clutch impossibly heady weights while forcing their lungs to follow ancient breathing patterns. Each gasp is a battle, each second a test of will. They're desperately clinging to consciousness, refusing to let their bodies collapse. The majority teeter on the edge of failure, faces contorted in agony. Only a handful remain standing, their determination etched into every strained muscle. Yet one particular boy commands attention in a way that defies explanation. While his peers struggle beneath standard training loads, he stands unwavering. Atop his weights rest massive boulders, stones that would crush grown men without hesitation. Even the battle-hardened instructor finds himself frozen in disbelief, witnessing strength that shouldn't exist in someone so young. What none of them could possibly comprehend is the truth hidden behind those determined eyes. This boy carries the soul of Earth's mightiest warrior reborn. The legendary founder of the Eldragon bloodline himself returned to the world he once shaped. Death had claimed him eventually, as it claims all mortals, but the universe had different plans. His story was far from over. Consciousness floods back as he opens unfamiliar eyes, sensation washing over him like a tide. The body of an infant. The realization crashes through his ancient mind with the force of a tsunami. He's been reduced to absolute helplessness. Other infants surrounded him, their presence triggering rapid calculations in his reborn mind. Through careful observation, the pieces fall into place. The Eldragon family has reclaimed him. They're all confined within an isolated structure, separated from the outside world for purposes yet unknown. Without warning, Eldragon maids appear wheeling a trolley laden with vessels containing an ominous crimson liquid that seems to pulse with unnatural life. Among the attendants walks a goblin, a detail that immediately sets his warrior instincts screaming with suspicion. Something about this entire scenario reeks of danger. The maid sees the goblin first, forcing the substance past its protesting lips. The creature's agonized shrieks pierce the air as its body convulses violently, flesh bubbling and expanding before detonating into a grotesque spray of blood and viscera. The test is complete. The magical concentration has been calibrated to a lethal perfection. This demonstration proves the liquid's arcane potency has been diluted to the absolute threshold, teetering between transformation and annihilation. Without hesitation, the maids begin their rounds, administering the mysterious crimson fluid to each helpless infant. Our protagonist watches in mounting horror, unable to fully grasp the implications until the maid's shadow falls across him. The moment the liquid touches his lips, understanding floods through him with crystal clarity. This is no ordinary sustenance. Power radiates from this substance with an intensity that threatens to tear reality itself apart. Ancient dragon's blood. The revelation strikes like lightning through his consciousness. They're forcing this primordial essence into newborn bodies, playing with forces that could obliterate them in an instant. Every survival instinct demands he reject it immediately, yet he's already swallowed a portion. The damage may already be done. Logic screams at him to follow the other infant's example. Expel the liquid before his fragile form explodes like the unfortunate goblin. But even as his body prepares to purge the substance, a different thought crystallizes in his ancient mind. What if this could be the key to transcending every limitation of his previous existence? By absorbing this overwhelming magical essence, he might finally reach the pinnacle that eluded him for an entire lifetime. Perhaps he could even surpass the legend he once was. Decision made, he drinks deeply, consuming every precious drop with fierce determination. Silently, he makes a vow to the universe. They will all learn never to underestimate Gelfus Eldragon's resolve. He opens himself completely, drawing the ancient dragon's essence into his very core. This raw, primordial power will become the foundation upon which he'll build his ascension to martial perfection. A summit that remained forever out of reach in his first life, now tantalizingly within grasp. The attending maids exchange surprised glances, clearly unprepared for an infant to absorb the volatile substance so effortlessly. Yet they quickly dismiss their curiosity, satisfied that the procedure has yielded the desired outcome. Another successful candidate. The remaining infants show signs of survival as well, though none comprehend the magnitude of what they've just endured. But even a reborn legend cannot defy the limitations of an infant's physiology. Consciousness begins slipping away as exhaustion claims its inevitable victory. 7 years flow past like a river. The child once known as Gelfus now answers to a new name, Zeke Eldragon. Every dawn finds him pushing his limits, refining his technique with obsessive dedication. The transformation is nothing short of miraculous. He can feel the power coursing through every fiber of his reconstructed form. All of this stems from the ancient dragon blood now permanently merged with his essence, rewriting his very genetic code. Source power exists within all living creatures as a fundamental force. Yet the ancient dragon blood that Zeke and his fellow survivors consumed contained concentrated reserves of two distinct and incredibly rare source variations. Even minimal exposure to this substance grants physical capabilities that transcend normal human limitations. Fortune continues to smile upon our protagonist. Having been previously guided by divine dragons in his past life, he instinctively absorbed every fragment of that unique ancient power without resistance or waste. The metamorphosis proves so profound that even he struggles to reconcile his expectations with reality. By every logical calculation, he should have achieved at least 4-star rank by this point. A star represents the ultimate compression of source power, manifested when a practitioner envisions their body as a cosmic void and successfully stabilizes a celestial core within that internal universe. Each subsequent star requires exponentially greater effort to form, yet each one multiplies one's combat potential dramatically. In his previous existence, our protagonist achieved the unprecedented 10th star, a feat no other warrior in recorded history had ever accomplished. 7 years have passed since his miraculous rebirth into this new era. His mother's life has already been claimed by illness, and his father remains conspicuously absent from his existence. The revelation that he's been reborn thousands of years beyond his original timeline continues to destabilize his understanding of reality. Yet what truly disturbs him is the brutal nature of this future age. A millennium later, civilization has devolved into a savage hierarchy where power alone determines survival. Though perhaps that's just the eternal human condition laid bare. The dragon's trial ritual exemplifies this merciless philosophy with chilling clarity. Only those infants who survive the blood ritual earn the privilege of training as Eldragon warriors. The rest are discarded like broken tools. Throughout these 7 years of development, not a single challenge has managed to impede our protagonist's relentless progress. Zeke attempts to investigate the family's combat training protocols, but the maids offer nothing but silence, or, more accurately, they're forbidden from speaking on such matters. The particular maid he interacts with possesses 3-star rank, sufficient for elementary combat instruction, but clearly under strict orders. Even after 7 years of cohabitation, every conversation with her feels like navigating a minefield, leaving him mentally drained by the enforced superficiality. Later, seeking solitude, he ventures toward the forest edge. There, he ingests poisonous herbs as part of his resistance training regimen, systematically building immunity to natural toxins. His warrior instincts suddenly flare to life, detecting a presence before his eyes confirm it. Massive boar emerges from the undergrowth, its body wreathed in an unnatural black mist that pulses with malevolent energy. This dark aura never existed 1,000 years ago. The world has changed in ways both subtle and disturbing. Combat erupts without ceremony or hesitation. Zeke's calculated strike connects with devastating force, sending the boar crashing through several trees with a single powerful blow. The sheer destruction seems impossible for someone officially ranked at 1 star, yet quality of power trumps quantity every time. His star burns with intensity others couldn't dream of achieving. Our protagonist collects the fallen boar and decides it's time to explore beyond these familiar training grounds. The world awaits. Unknown to him, a mysterious figure has been observing from concealed positions nearby. This stranger witnesses the entire confrontation and immediately recognizes something extraordinary about Zeke. Not only does the child dispatch the corrupted beast effortlessly, but those sharp eyes also detect the observer's presence despite expert concealment. However, as the direct offspring of the family patriarch, Zeke exists under constant surveillance and forbidden from unauthorized departures. His gilded cage remains locked. Yet this very restriction only intensifies the stranger's curiosity about the unusual child. Later, our protagonist overhears voices drifting through the corridors. A group of warriors stands gathered in heated discussion, their tones urgent and formal. He enters after requesting permission to join them, maintaining proper etiquette. They explain their purpose. They've come to retrieve Zeke. An examination awaits him in 8 days. The announcement ignites fury in our protagonist's chest, his composure cracking. He'd assumed this summons meant acceptance into the main family estate. Instead, they're dragging him to the Dragon's Nest for yet another trial. This is the Eldragon family's exclusive educational fortress, an institution established during the millennium of his absence. Every child born into this bloodline must enroll at precisely 7 years of age, without exception or delay. Day marks the entrance examination, and our protagonist has received absolutely zero preparation. He's being thrown into deep water without learning to swim. The hero clutches his head in frustration, knowing participation is mandatory despite the absurdity. Zeke's exhaustion becomes visible, the weight of expectation pressing down on his small shoulders. Timid voice breaks through his thoughts as a boy named Lingus from Oldscale Village gathers courage to approach and speak. Initially, Zeke reads Lingus as simply nervous and uncertain, but beneath that anxious exterior, he quickly recognizes genuine courage, the kind that matters most when the world turns hostile. Zeke offers his own introduction in return, establishing a fragile connection. Our protagonist confesses his concerns about the upcoming examination, admitting he has no idea what content or challenges await. The admission catches Lingus completely off guard, his expression shifting to confusion. Before their conversation can develop further, an interruption shatters the moment. Ethan from Oldscale Village calls out to Lingus with obvious malicious intent, immediately launching into verbal abuse. His mocking voice echoes across the courtyard, declaring that Lingus should have remained hidden at home because someone of his worthless bloodline could never gain academy admission. After all, his father was nothing more than a pathetic mock dragon, a failed warrior unworthy of the family name. The Eldragon family operates under an absolute hierarchical system established by ancient mandate, rigidly categorizing every member. Lesser dragons occupy the rookie tier. Young dragons serve as common infantry. Adult dragons hold captain-level authority, while elder dragons command from the highest echelons as executives and council members. At the very bottom of this merciless pyramid exist the mock dragons, those who either failed the Dragon's Nest entrance or couldn't complete their training. These individuals are branded as frauds, forever marked by their inadequacy. But Lingus harbors a fierce dream to erase the shameful designation of mock dragon from his family legacy. Our protagonist speaks up in defense of his newfound companion, arguing that every warrior deserves at least one fair opportunity to prove themselves. His intervention only amplifies the bully's rage, and they escalate their verbal assault on the unfortunate boy. Yet Zeke refuses to back down, continuing to shield his friend with unwavering resolve. The confrontation ends abruptly when an adult dragon examiner steps forward, his commanding voice announcing that the examination will commence immediately. All applicants must collect their numbered identification tags following registration, then proceed in orderly fashion toward the second gate. Discipline will be maintained at all times. 40. Lingus gently suggests withdrawal might be wise if our protagonist harbors any doubts about his capabilities or readiness. Yet confidence radiates from Zeke, despite his complete ignorance of the examination's actual content. Sometimes certainty needs no foundation. The first trial reveals itself. Scratch the stone surface and passage is guaranteed. Candidates may select from the provided arsenal or rely solely on their bare hands. Each student receives exactly 3 attempts, no more, no less. Zeke finds the requirement surprisingly lenient, a reaction that visibly shocks Lingus, who'd braced himself for something far more nightmarish. The examination commences with formal ceremony. While Lingus begins hyperventilating with anxiety, our protagonist remains perfectly still, radiating an almost unsettling calm. Testing stone possesses extraordinary regenerative properties, its crystalline structure repairing superficial damage within mere heartbeats. More dangerously, any assault relying purely on physical force triggers a catastrophic counterattack. The stone reflects impact energy back with hundreds of times the original magnitude. Lingus hurriedly explains the critical technique. One must properly channel ether source power through their body during the strike to leave permanent damage. Our protagonist grasps the essential truth immediately. This examination measures one's mastery of ether manipulation rather than simple martial prowess. Most students appear capable of meeting this standard, including the arrogant bullies from earlier. Yet disqualifications continue mounting with alarming frequency, dreams shattering against that immovable stone. Finally, Zeke's name echoes through the testing grounds. He declines all weapon offerings with a simple gesture. The proctors question his decision, asking for explicit confirmation. His bare hands will suffice, he assures them with unwavering resolve. Murmurs ripple through the assembled crowd, predictions of inevitable failure spreading like wildfire. Meanwhile, genuine concern etches itself across Lingus's features as he watches his friend step forward. As the moment arrives, our protagonist studies the stone with intense focus. His analysis reveals something profound. This mineral must have formed over a millennium ago, as nothing remotely similar existed in his previous era. Without warning, he raises his fist, gathering every ounce of power into a single devastating point. His strike connects with the regeneration stone using his legendary technique. The Dragon Slayer combat form shatters expectations and stone alike. Examination passed. The impossible made routine. Stunned silence blankets the testing grounds as minds struggle to process what their eyes just witnessed. Here, unrestrained joy explodes across Lingus's face, shock and happiness blending into something beautiful. Nearby, the examiner's eyes narrow with suspicious calculation, wondering if this boy might be some powerful house's hidden illegitimate offspring. After all, only warriors who've achieved 4- or 5-star rank possess the capability to accomplish such a feat. As recognition of his success, our protagonist receives a green potion, though its significance remains unclear to him. Lingus quickly moves to enlighten him with obvious excitement. He's been awarded a healing potion of normal grade, a valuable prize by any standard. Zeke's mind races, wondering if this could possibly be genuine elixir. Real elixir requires ingredients so rare they border on mythical. Its creation demands unique herbs containing pure elixir cores, plus essence harvested from divine and phantom beasts whose very existence teeters on legendary status. The potion's effects are nothing short of miraculous, healing both chronic injuries and fresh wounds while dramatically amplifying one's ether reserves. Due to the impossibly scarce ingredients, refinement proves incredibly complex, and genuine elixir almost never appears in common markets. Lingus adds with reverence that potions produced by House Dragon far eclipse anything available in ordinary alchemical shops. Our protagonist feels genuine astonishment while his enthusiastic friend continues heaping praise. The bullies manage to pass their examination as well, smug satisfaction written across their faces. Now Lingus must face his own moment of truth. He selects a sword from the weapon rack, gripping it with trembling determination. The blade bounces off harmlessly, leaving no mark whatsoever. This is his final attempt. Everything rides on this single moment. The bullies waste no time launching their verbal assault, mockery dripping from every word. They declare this outcome perfectly expected from someone with half-dragon blood failure running in his veins. Zeke intervenes with strategic advice: abandon the sword and embrace the spear instead. The weapon clearly doesn't suit Lingus's natural fighting style. He's struggling to create even a minor scratch with it. Laughter erupts from the surrounding students, ridiculing his apparent weakness without mercy. Our protagonist refuses to abandon his friend, stepping forward once more. He insists on the weapon change, conviction absolute in his voice. Lingus's father never received permission to enter Dragon's Nest, forever barred from his dreams. They brand him with the shameful title of Half-Dragon, a label meant to crush spirits. Yet that man never surrendered hope, raising his son with unwavering dedication. Now Lingus carries the weight of proving every doubter wrong. The problem is simple but overwhelming. He has no idea how to properly wield a spear. Zeke's advice cuts through the complexity, thrust straight forward without overthinking the motion. Logic screams this is impossible. How could someone holding a spear for the very first time damage a regeneration stone with the simple thrust? Yet he shouldn't judge his potential without attempting the impossible. They met mere hours ago, yet if our protagonist believes in Lingus this completely, then perhaps he should believe in himself with equal fervor. Without wasting another precious second, he thrusts. The spear drives straight into the stone, feeling like a natural extension of his body from the very first moment. Astonishment ripples through the crowd as he achieves something beyond mere scratching. Spear pierces completely through the stone, emerging from the opposite side. Zeke erupts in celebration, his voice ringing with genuine pride and joy. Against all odds and expectations, Lingus has passed the examination he couldn't even imagine succeeding at. Tears of overwhelming happiness stream down his face, while the bullies stand frozen, tension and disbelief paralyzing their features. With the testing concluded, the entrance ceremony begins with formal grandeur. Zeke wonders aloud if that single trial constituted the entire examination, but Lingus explains additional tests likely await after their official entrance. The head of the Eldragon family makes his entrance to deliver words of congratulation. His presence commands absolute attention as he prepares to address the new students. Zeke casually comments on the family head's notably gloomy expression, observing what others carefully ignore. Lingus frantically attempts to silence him, panic evident in every gesture. There, Zeke finally observes the Eldragon family's current military strength. Quite a few 6-star level warriors stand among their ranks, representing decent power. Balza Eldragon leads the family, his aura suggesting 8-star level achievement. 1,000 years ago, barely a dozen warriors worldwide had reached such heights. Something dark stirs in Zeke's chest, a profound hatred directed toward his own biological father. Lord Balza's words begin, formal and commanding. He urges the new students to become the flesh and blood of Eldragon, to embody their legacy. His aura presses down with suffocating intensity. Students struggle desperately just to draw breath as overwhelming pressure crushes down upon them. Our protagonist realizes with cold certainty that he cannot stand this man's presence. An elderly dragon intercedes, praising the Lord's grace with practiced diplomacy. His words acknowledge these are merely traditional phrases, easing the oppressive atmosphere. Everyone feels immediate relief as the tension dissipates like morning fog. Soon after, a warrior announces dormitory assignments will be revealed, instructing those called to depart immediately. Zeke questions whether they'll share accommodations, prompting Lingus to explain. Dragon's Nest contains 4 separate dormitory buildings. Students admitted to the academy receive assignment to one of 4 cardinal direction dorms, east, west, north, and south. Zeke finds himself assigned to the east dormitory of Dragon's Nest. He wanders through unfamiliar corridors, searching with growing frustration for his designated room. Finally locating the correct door, he pushes it open. He presents a warm, friendly greeting to whoever awaits inside. Surprise registers immediately. Fate has played an unexpected hand. Lingus stands there as his assigned roommate, both faces breaking into genuine smiles. They celebrate this fortunate coincidence with obvious happiness. Zeke admits he has no concrete plans for today, and Lingus informs him training commences tomorrow morning. Our protagonist hadn't been paying attention during the announcements, completely missing this crucial information. His friend scolds him with exasperated fondness. The hero had been contemplating abandoning this tedious place entirely, planning an unauthorized exploration. The regeneration stone, the healing potion, and other intriguing elements have captured his curiosity. Remaining with House Eldragon for a while longer suddenly seems like a worthwhile investment of time. 1 full month flows past, days blending into training and discovery. Within the sacred training grounds of House Eldragon, an intense session unfolds, one designed to teach young dragons the ancient art of breath cultivation, a method that could determine their very futures. This revolutionary technique bears the unmistakable genius of the 15th head of House Eldragon, whose innovations still echo through generations. Among the gathered students, certain prodigies stand out like stars in the night sky. Lady Laika radiates the unmistakable presence of a second-star practitioner, her aura shimmering with barely contained power. Then there's Zeke, whose extraordinary natural aptitude defies all conventional wisdom. With zero formal instruction, his performance leaves even the veteran trainer questioning whether he somehow inherited the current head's legendary abilities directly through his bloodline. The foundation of their practice traces back to a sacred legacy. The Dragon King's breath technique, once wielded by the legendary hero himself, was carefully modified and preserved through the ages as what is now known as Dragon's Breath. These ancient techniques serve a singular, vital purpose, drawing ether from the very air itself, channeling it into one's body, and refining it through precise calculation to dramatically enhance one's ether reserves. Yet the effectiveness of this power hinges entirely on the practitioner's skill and dedication. This is precisely why each noble house jealously guards its own refined variations, treating their finished techniques as treasured family secrets worth protecting at any cost. But here's where the original method proved inadequate for the hero's vision. If a technique only functions while standing perfectly still, what use is it in actual combat? The hero's original Dragon King's breath allowed practitioners to manipulate ether while moving freely, without ever breaking their breathing rhythm, and its effects were nothing short of phenomenal. The tragic reality? Its difficulty meant only a precious few could ever master it. Driven by compassion for his clan's future, the hero simplified the technique so anyone could harness its power and strengthen their bloodline. Yet he never imagined this gift would evolve and endure across the centuries, surviving even beyond his own reincarnation into this new life. Later that evening, as dinner is served in the Great Hall, Zeke makes an unexpected suggestion. He proposes they all delay eating for just a moment. His reasoning is simple yet determined. He won't grow stronger if he doesn't push himself harder. He needs to train with every ounce of dedication he can muster, even at the expense of immediate comfort. While these thoughts race through his mind, our protagonist can't help but notice how remarkably well-trained some of his fellow students appear to be. The moment is interrupted when Laika approaches him, her eyes bright with admiration as she mentions how absolutely amazing his performance was earlier during training. Lingus, standing nearby, suddenly grows super nervous, her face flushing as she quickly informs Zeke that the girl he's casually talking to is none other than the head's daughter herself. Completely unbothered by this revelation, our protagonist responds with disarming simplicity. He's also the head's son after all. What's the big deal? He continues answering Laika's questions with an almost innocent ignorance, even pausing to advise Lingus to focus on eating his food rather than spacing out like that. This casual confidence somehow excites Laika even more. There's something refreshing about someone who doesn't treat her like fragile nobility. Seizing the moment, she makes him a direct offer. Become her subordinate, join her faction within the house. Her reasoning is pragmatic and shrewd. As an illegitimate child, he desperately needs powerful allies if he hopes to survive the political games ahead. She wants his strength to help her claim the position of next head, a goal that burns in her eyes like dragonfire. In return, she promises to reward him generously with wealth, status, and protection. But Zeke calmly refuses her offer without hesitation. Even when she attempts to sweeten the deal by mentioning access to the head's legendary potions and secret resources, he rejects it all with the same unshakable composure. Laika possesses an impressive ability for her age. She can project her ether outside her physical body, a feat that typically requires years of intense training to achieve. Growing more aggressive in his refusal, our protagonist informs Laika with absolute conviction that he has zero interest in becoming the next head of House Eldragon. More importantly, he will never serve under anyone. Not now, not ever. Why? Because he's destined to be the strongest, and the strongest bow to no one. Challenged by his bold declaration, Laika's eyes flash with competitive fire. She offers him something more immediate, a fight, right here and now. Within minutes, excitement ripples through the hall as everyone rushes to the training ground, eager to witness this unexpected clash between two exceptional talents. As the crowd gathers, Zeke suddenly realizes this situation has escalated far more seriously than he intended. Lingus leans in close, his voice urgent as he explains that Laika isn't merely Lord Balz's daughter, she carries Typhon bloodline in her veins. That name alone commands respect. Typhon, one of the 4 great houses whose power and influence directly back House Eldragon's dominance. Like the other gifted children of noble lineage, she's a certified prodigy. By the age of just 7, she had already mastered every single form practiced by her house, a feat that takes most practitioners decades. Unfortunately, this crucial information is entirely new to our protagonist. He only knew her as the head's daughter, nothing more about her illustrious bloodline or terrifying reputation. But even this revelation doesn't dim his confidence. If anything, not knowing everything about his opponent makes him even more excited for what's coming. Despite his friend's increasingly insistent warnings that he doesn't stand a chance against Lady Laika's overwhelming skill and experience, Zeke's smile only grows wider. Both fighters step into position, radiating readiness for combat. Zeke breaks the tense silence, asking her directly, why is she forcing this fight on him? Her answer cuts straight to the heart of noble politics. She wants to become the next head by defeating him here and now, claiming an early victory to make him serve under her banner before anyone else can recruit him. Our protagonist seems genuinely clueless about the complex power dynamics within his own family structure. Laika pauses, studying his confused expression, wondering if he truly doesn't understand what's at stake. She explains the brutal reality. He may be legitimate by blood, but there are 5 heirs actively competing for the position of next head, and the competition is cutthroat. Every single competitor carries blood from one of the 4 great houses backing Eldragon. Every single one except him. To secure her position early and eliminate a wildcard, she needs to defeat him right away, establishing dominance before the real succession battles begin. Without warning, she swings her massive sword with terrifying force, a weapon that should be impossible for someone her size to wield so effortlessly. Yet our protagonist dodges the devastating attack with such ease it seems almost insulting, his body flowing like water around her blade. Her strikes intensify, becoming faster and more ferocious with each passing second. The gathered crowd watches in awe, finally understanding what it truly means to be a child of the head. This level of power shouldn't exist in bodies so young. Laika keeps unleashing a relentless barrage of attacks while Zeke continuously evades them, his movements requiring seemingly no effort whatsoever, as if he's dancing rather than fighting. Even Langus finds himself surprised by this display. Our protagonist takes a moment to praise her unexpected and creative fighting styles, but Laika isn't here for compliments. She insists he stop dodging and actually fight back. He obliges her request, finally shifting to offense, and throws a single, precise punch. The impact sends her crashing down to the ground. As she struggles to understand what just happened, one question burns in her mind. Why can't she land even a single hit on him? The hero confirms her suspicions with brutal honesty. She's far quicker than most one-star practitioners he's ever encountered, her speed genuinely impressive for her level. But in the end, she's still just a 1-star. That single-tier difference creates a gap that raw talent alone cannot bridge. He elaborates, explaining with almost clinical precision how he's been observing her breathing patterns throughout their exchange. Every twitch of her muscles, every subtle shift in her eye movements. He's been tracking all of it to predict her attacks before they even begin. The rest, he casually mentions, is just combat experience accumulated over lifetimes. Refusing to accept defeat, Laika forces herself back to her feet and strikes at him again with renewed determination. But instead of connecting, she finds herself violently slammed back down to the training ground. Yet our protagonist can't help but be impressed. She actually managed to gather true source power and concentrate it in her core to withstand that devastating blow without sustaining serious injury. The fact that she's still conscious after taking that hit speaks volumes about her potential. When Lingus attempts to interrupt the match out of concern, Zeke suggests firmly that he should stay back and let this play out. Just then, an explosion of power erupts from Laika's body, her aura visibly transforming as she breaks through to 2-star level right before everyone's astonished eyes. At this advanced level, a practitioner can project their source power outside their physical body, shaping it specifically for martial arts applications. This external projection is what experts call aura, and Laika now wields it. Her voice rings with newfound confidence as she declares that Zeke himself helped her achieve this breakthrough by pushing her to her limits. Now that she's reached 2-star level, the gap between them has closed. He doesn't stand a chance anymore. To prove her point, she channels her enhanced power and unleashes a focused strike of devastating force. The attack comes with such incredible speed and power that even our protagonist cannot completely dodge it this time. For the first time in this match, Zeke takes actual damage, and the crowd gasps collectively. Now he faces something entirely different, a transformation that changes everything about this fight. This is the true Thunder Spirit Great Sword Art in its awakened form, and the difference is staggering. The sight of genuine ancient technique in action makes our protagonist even more thrilled. This is exactly the kind of challenge he's been craving. Laika activates her Thundergrade technique, following it immediately with a Thunderlight flash strike that illuminates the entire training ground. At first, our protagonist seems to genuinely enjoy the escalating challenge, his smile unwavering. But he quickly realizes the harsh reality. Her current power level is exponentially greater than before, and that much concentrated lightning will be extremely difficult to handle in his current 1-star state. It's staggering to witness just one single star difference creates this massive gulf in combat capability between them. Her movement patterns remained fundamentally similar to before, but the instant she ascended to 2-star level, her Thunder Spirit Greatsword Arts exploded with overwhelming power. She was fast before, but now she's moving at speeds that seem to defy physics itself. What truly unsettles him is the lightning trap swirling around her body, a defensive application that should have been impossible to achieve even 1,000 years ago when he last lived. Our protagonist finds himself unable to launch counterattacks because he remains uncertain about the true nature and limitations of her enhanced power. Yet despite this disadvantage, he maintains his confidence, still smiling even in such a precarious situation. This persistent smile irritates his opponent more than any insult possibly could. How dare he look so relaxed? Frustrated beyond measure, she keeps answering his defiance with increasingly powerful lightning strikes aimed directly at him. Miraculously, our protagonist continues standing on his feet despite the relentless electrical assault. Lingus watches helplessly from the sidelines, barely able to believe what he's witnessing. Laika makes one final offer. She'll stop this brutal onslaught immediately if he surrenders right now and swears loyalty to her cause. When our protagonist refuses yet again without hesitation, she makes a declaration that sends chills through the crowd. She'll use every single ounce of power she possesses to end this fight once and for all. With those ominous words, she begins channeling the Thunder Spirit's ultimate technique, a forbidden first secret art that few have ever witnessed. Heavenly thunder descends from above like divine judgment itself, striking with the fury of an angry god. When the blinding light finally fades, Zeke lies motionless on the ground, his body smoking from the devastating impact. The match appears to be definitively over, and the crowd begins to murmur about Laika's overwhelming victory. But then, defying all expectations, Zeke rises once more to his feet. Electrical energy crackles wildly across his skin, sparking and dancing in patterns that make his opponent's eyes widen with shock and curiosity. The residual lightning strike continues arcing around him, transforming him into something none of them have ever seen before. He begins explaining, his voice steady despite his injuries. He was deliberately taking her attacks, using his own body as a laboratory to study and analyze every aspect of her techniques. Somehow, impossibly, he's managed to replicate them. He can now use her own lightning arts against her. While enduring that punishment that should have killed him, something extraordinary was happening beneath the surface. He kept continuously cycling his Dragon King's breathing technique even as the lightning ravaged his body. The ancient breathing method reacted unexpectedly with her lightning energy, creating a fusion reaction inside his cells. Lightning began generating naturally within his body, responding to his will. Now he can control electrical energy himself, manipulating it with precision he didn't even know was possible until this very moment. He admits he doesn't fully understand all the technical details yet, but according to his analysis, her entire clan must possess a special constitutional adaptation to lightning. By unconsciously fusing both techniques, his breathing method and her lightning manipulation, he's received an invaluable lesson that will change everything about his future growth. On top of that incredible revelation, thanks to Laika pushing him beyond his limits, he's also successfully broken through to 2-star level right here in the middle of combat. The fight is far from over. In fact, it's only truly beginning now. Our protagonist begins experiencing the extraordinary traits of his enhanced strength, and soon he'll develop a complete understanding of these newfound abilities. Lingus feels his entire body tense with anxiety as he witnesses the true, terrifying potential hidden within the head's bloodline manifesting before his eyes. Even Laika's devastating lightning attacks seem unable to reach our protagonist anymore. He's adapting faster than should be humanly possible. The clash between these two exceptional talents continues to escalate, both fighters now operating at 2-star level, exchanging techniques that light up the night sky. After what feels like both seconds and hours simultaneously, something shifts. Our protagonist makes his decision. It's time to conclude this battle by creating something entirely new, a special form born from this very moment, a technique that will bear witness to his evolution as a warrior and prove once and for all who truly stands at the pinnacle. While his opponent remains lost in a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions, the decisive moment arrives. Our protagonist seizes the initiative without hesitation, channeling everything he's learned into his newly forged special form, a technique born from the fusion of ancient wisdom and modern innovation. The dragon-slaying arts erupt from his core as he strikes with devastating precision, his attack cutting through the air like judgment itself. In a single, breathtaking instant, Laika crashes to the ground, the match definitively concluded. The entire battle was nothing short of fascinating, a display of raw talent colliding with hard-earned experience that left every witness speechless. Laika now lies there in complete disbelief, her mind struggling to process the reality of her defeat. How could this have happened? The stakes were impossibly high for her. She needs to surpass not just Zeke, but all of her brothers combined if she hopes to claim the position of next head. Despite his overwhelming victory, our protagonist shows genuine respect. He praises her exceptional skills with a warm smile that holds no trace of mockery. He even takes time to motivate her, encouraging her to continue learning and growing because this won't be their last encounter. She'll have to face him again, and next time could be different. Zeke extends an invitation for another battle sometime in the future, treating her as a worthy rival rather than a defeated opponent. Yet in Laika's mind, he's already transcended into something else entirely, an unbeatable individual who exists on a plane she's only beginning to comprehend. Several hours later, deep within the Fisher residence where shadows dance across ancient stone walls, a scene of intense focus unfolds. Lord Balza stands alone, restraining and perfecting his dragon combat art's first form with movements precise enough to slice falling leaves. His concentration shatters when a subordinate interrupts with urgent news. His daughter has achieved something remarkable. She's reached level 2-star. The report emphasizes how absolutely fascinating this accomplishment is for someone her age. At this rate of growth, by the time of their graduation ceremony, she could easily reach level 4 or even 5-star, a prospect that would make her a legend. Yet Lord Balza remains eerily unbothered by this achievement, his expression unchanging. He orders his subordinate not to waste valuable time with such reports. Come speak to him only when she can demonstrate this talent in ways that truly matter. The soldier hesitates before delivering the second piece of information. She was recently defeated in combat, her breakthrough proving insufficient against her opponent. The one who defeated her carries a name that makes Lord Balza's eyes finally shift with interest. It was his own son, Lord Zeke, who brought her down. Understanding begins to dawn on Balza's weathered features, pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. Zeke's mother also possessed extraordinary natural talent for battle, her skills legendary even among the elite. But she had departed this world long before the boy was born, leaving behind only stories and bloodline legacy. This creates a curious mystery that demands explanation. Who could have possibly taught the boy skills powerful enough to defeat a 2-star practitioner? What master has been training him in secret? But the subordinate delivers information that makes the mystery even deeper. Lord Zeke reached this level entirely on his own, without any formal teachings or guidance whatsoever. His growth is purely instinctual, driven by inherited genius alone. This revelation changes everything. Lord Balza's expression hardens with purpose as he issues a command that sends ripples of shock through the room. Begin the first trial immediately, even though the timing is premature. Most of the students haven't even reached 1-star level yet. Throwing them into the trial now would be catastrophically dangerous. But according to Balza's cold logic, danger creates equality. Every individual faces the same test regardless of whether they've trained extensively or barely started. Those who cannot survive the first trial possess no future worth nurturing. He declares such failures unworthy of carrying the Eldragon name, harsh words that seal the fates of many young hopefuls. His next command is equally significant. Summon Freya back from her duties to personally oversee and conduct this trial. You must keep a close, unwavering watch throughout the entire ordeal. No detail can escape her expert observation. The following day dawns with usual training routines resuming across the grounds, the atmosphere thick with focused determination as students practice dragon combat art techniques. Our protagonist works on mastering the Ibuki Dragon's Breath, a revolutionary method developed by the 15th generation head and officially classified as a combat art. But in its true essence, it functions as a brilliantly constructed body enhancement technique, ingeniously designed so even children can learn its fundamentals with relative ease. Lingus approaches and asks if Zeke is still training the basic forms, but our protagonist casually mentions he's already mastered everything they've been taught. His friend's jaw practically drops. They only received instruction on these techniques just a few hours ago. How is complete mastery even possible? Zeke demonstrates by asking him to turn around and face away for a moment. Within seconds, he develops a perfect channeling route, efficiently transferring energy through pathways that should take weeks to establish. Lingus finds himself genuinely impressed, a thought forming in his mind that perhaps lingers unspoken. Could this level of rapid learning mean something extraordinary? Maybe this standard training regimen has already become boring for someone who recently defeated the formidable Lady Laika in single combat. The Dragon Slayer combat technique represents overwhelming power, a special form that crystallized and bonded within our protagonist's very essence during that intense battle with Laika, forged in the crucible of their clash. He can't help but wonder, if this intermediate form possesses such devastating potential, then surely a final form must exist somewhere in the technique's depths, one powerful enough to slay even divine dragons themselves. The question that fascinates Zeke is how far these dragon techniques can ultimately be pushed. Having completely mastered every dragon combat art technique available to students, our protagonist returns to what he considers the foundation, usual physical conditioning and body refinement training. Just then, Lingus approaches with an earnest request. He wants Zeke to provide him with personal training because he desperately wants to grow stronger, to close the gap that feels impossibly wide. Our protagonist agrees without hesitation, recognizing his friend as someone genuinely worth teaching, someone with the dedication required to make real progress. Before long, another figure approaches with similar determination burning in her eyes. Laika herself steps forward, requesting that he train her as well, swallowing her pride to learn from the one who defeated her. The way he completely overwhelmed her in their earlier fight ignited something fierce inside her heart. She wants to grow exponentially stronger, powerful enough to surprise her brothers and even shock our protagonist himself when they meet again. Zeke agrees to train her as well, though he pauses to ask with genuine concern if she's truly recovered. Her wounds from their battle should have kept her bedridden for at least a month, but thanks to the miraculous effects of a high-grade healing potion, her injuries have already mended completely. Without such expensive treatment, she'd definitely still be resting in bed for the next 30 days, unable to move without agony. Laika confirms once more, almost defensively, asking if he's certain about training her. Doesn't he need his own personal time to continue developing his abilities? Our protagonist reassures both young talents that he's fully prepared and willing to guide their growth, seeing potential in each that deserves nurturing. A moment later, he poses a more delicate question to Laika. Is she truly comfortable being trained by the very person who defeated her so decisively? Her answer comes without hesitation. She's ready to do absolutely whatever it takes to grow stronger and eventually claim the leadership position she desperately needs. This obsession intrigues our protagonist enough to ask directly, why is she so intensely fixated on obtaining this particular position? What drives such burning ambition? Laika's explanation reveals a darker reality. According to their family's ancient customs, if she fails to claim leadership through her own strength and merit, her fate has already been decided. In the best case scenario, she'll be married off to her cousin in a political arrangement. In the worst case, it will be some complete stranger chosen to strengthen alliances, her wishes entirely irrelevant. Our protagonist's expression darkens considerably, genuine anger flickering across his features. His hatred intensifies for systems and traditions that treat people like mere breeding stock, tools for consolidating power rather than individuals with dreams and autonomy. Soon enough, an announcement echoes through the training grounds, informing everyone about the imminent arrival of a new instructor, someone special coming to guide them. Despite her incredibly busy schedule and important duties elsewhere, she's made time to travel all this way specifically for them. The announcement urges everyone to show proper gratitude toward her sacrifice and expertise. Freya steps into view with practiced grace, her expert eyes immediately observing details others would miss. Laika's reflexes, sharp and battle-tested, her aura flawless and precisely controlled. They formally introduce her as Freya Wingkick, an elite member of the prestigious Black Dragon Corps. She offers them all a warm, professional greeting that somehow feels both friendly and intimidating. Someone nearby notices Zeke and questions him about something, perhaps wondering about his reaction to this legendary instructor's presence. But our protagonist shows absolutely no surprise whatsoever, responding with characteristic confidence that there's simply nothing to be shocked about. He even casually mentions specific details about her intriguing skills, observations that reveal he's already analyzed her capabilities just from watching her entrance. This perceptiveness makes Freya immediately understand why Lord Balza expressed such concern about this particular boy. There's something different about him, something that warrants close attention. Our protagonist finds himself taking particular interest in her martial arts foundation. He notes with appreciation how there's absolutely no sound emanating from her boots despite her movements. That level of control speaks volumes about her mastery. After introductions conclude, Freya addresses the gathered students with serious intensity, advising everyone that they must pass her upcoming test if they wish to continue their education here. The test parameters are brutally simple. Each student will receive a crystal orb and must survive for 1 full month on Poisonous Dragon Mountain with it intact. That location alone should strike terror into their hearts. It serves as the natural home of countless venomous beasts, each capable of killing trained warriors. Even the slightest contact with a single poisonous weed growing there can kill anyone instantly, their bodies succumbing to toxins within heartbeats. A flash of recognition crosses our protagonist's features. He used to train extensively on that very mountain in his previous life, turning its dangers into his personal proving ground. Freya continues explaining the stakes with cold clarity. If their crystal orbs break or go missing at any point during this task, that student will be immediately disqualified and subsequently expelled from the academy without appeal. She advises them to maintain strict control over their breathing using the dragon breath technique they've learned. As long as they keep the orb intact and their breathing steady, they'll survive the environmental hazards. Regarding the dangerous monsters that will inevitably attack them, her suggestion is simple and brutal: kill them. Otherwise, there won't be any food available for them to survive the full month. Starvation will claim them before the beasts do. The students still have 5 precious days remaining before the trial begins, time they absolutely cannot afford to waste. During these 5 days, each student can choose and learn one of House Eldragon's basic martial arts. Acquiring a proper fighting style will dramatically improve their survival chances once they're thrown into that deadly environment. But for those who fail to train adequately during these 5 days, Freya makes it clear she bears zero responsibility for whatever fate befalls them. One of the younger children throws out an innocent question, their voice small with hope. Will she help them if they find themselves in mortal danger during the trial? The answer they receive is exactly what one should expect from House Eldragon's philosophy. Only the strong deserve to remain. If someone cannot win their battles, they will simply die. No rescue, no second chances. Panic immediately spreads through the assembled students like wildfire, their faces draining of color as the full weight of this test crashes down upon them. Meanwhile, our protagonist watches this scene with mixed feelings, wondering silently if this family has truly changed this much from what he remembers, or if this cruelty was always lurking beneath the surface. Just then, Freya demonstrates something that captures everyone's shocked attention. She casually destroys something important. Training manuals for each weapon type scatter across the ground, their pages torn and ruined beyond use. While Lingus struggles visibly to choose which weapon he should commit to learning, Zeke leans in and advises him to pick a spear, the same weapon he wielded effectively during the earlier entrance examination. He even offers strategic guidance to Laika, suggesting she should choose an axe, a weapon that will naturally complement her aggressive fighting style and cover the gap she's currently lacking. After weapon selection concludes, Freya addresses them all one final time with grave intensity, advising everyone to train as if their very lives depend on every second of practice. Because the harsh truth is simple. simple, their lives do depend on it. Those who slack off will die screaming in that forest. He delivers one more piece of information that amplifies their anxiety to new heights. During their survival test, upperclassmen will actively hunt them, attempting to steal their orbs as part of their own assigned tasks. Though she does mention that since the forest spans an enormous area, the probability of students and upperclassmen crossing paths remains relatively rare, though rare is cold comfort when death hangs in the balance. A visible wave of fear ripples through the student body, their confidence already crumbling before the trial has even begun. Seeing their distress, Zeke steps forward and advises them to form teams if handling the challenge alone seems impossible. There's no shame in acknowledging your limits and seeking strength in numbers. As for himself, he's already decided to venture into that deadly forest completely solo, relying only on his own abilities. He casually invites his friends to share a meal before they all throw themselves into intensive training. No point facing danger on an empty stomach. 5 days pass in a blur of desperate preparation, and finally the moment arrives. It's time for their survival test to begin. All the students have gathered at the forest's edge, staring into the dark, foreboding tree line that promises death to the unprepared. Lingus speaks nervously, his voice barely steady as he acknowledges that the time has finally arrived. Laika stands beside him, nodding in silent agreement, her jaw set with determination. Internal doubts plague him as he questions himself. Is he truly qualified to work alongside someone of her noble status and exceptional skill? He mutters almost to himself, acknowledging that many of his companions belong to prestigious noble families while he's merely a commoner, someone who shouldn't even be standing here among them. His fellow teammates appear from behind, offering words of encouragement that catch him off guard. They remind him firmly that he stands at exactly the same level as them now, regardless of birth. Celine steps forward into the conversation, claiming she also can hardly believe they're actually working directly alongside someone as talented as Laika. But Laika herself responds with calm authority, reminding them all there's nothing to disbelieve. They were each chosen specifically for their unique abilities and potential. Bloodline doesn't determine worth here. Lingus tightens his grip around his spear shaft until his knuckles turn white, making a solemn internal vow to give absolutely everything he has to this trial, to prove he deserves to stand among them. Raymond pledges with firm conviction that he'll live up to every expectation she has placed upon him, determined not to disappoint. Laika's expression broadens considerably as she expresses her confidence in their abilities, then turns her attention to Zeke with a question that carries genuine concern. Is he absolutely certain about venturing into that deadly forest completely solo? He nods with unwavering confidence while the others shift nervously around him. Even Laika admits with surprising honesty that she feels nervous too, despite her strength. But Zeke raises his eyebrow with an almost challenging expression, telling her plainly that everyone gathered here possesses more than enough talent to succeed. She questions whether he's truly certain about that assessment. His answer comes without hesitation. She and the others are remarkably sharp, adaptable fighters. Their team's version of this test will proceed relatively smoothly compared to what awaits those going alone. Lingus mutters almost to himself, a note of admiration in his voice, that Zeke always manages to remain confident no matter how dire the circumstances appear. The new instructor steps forward with commanding presence, drawing everyone's scattered attention back to her. She observes them all carefully with experienced eyes, silently evaluating their group formations and readiness before speaking. She praises their decision to work together, stating that proper teamwork will ultimately ensure their survival when individual strength fails them. She requests they all retrieve their crystal orbs, explaining with absolute clarity that each student must protect their own orb as if their life depends on it, because it does. The trial will last 1 full month on the poison-infested mountains, and since all orbs appear completely identical to one another, there's no way to distinguish them once separated from their owners. A troubling thought crosses Zeke's mind. If someone loses their orb, could they simply replace it with another student's? The implications are disturbing but strategically relevant. Freya continues her explanation, warning them that on the mountain they'll face aggressive upperclassmen who will actively attempt to steal their orbs through force or cunning. One anxious student raises their hand to ask about those who haven't even reached 1-star level yet. How are they supposed to defend themselves? Meanwhile, another student displays misplaced confidence, claiming the task actually sounds relatively easy. Ignoring their concerns and overconfidence equally, Freya commands them all to proceed immediately. The examination begins now. Like a tidal wave released from a dam, they rush forward toward the mountain's foreboding entrance, adrenaline overtaking fear. Laika turns back toward Zeke one final time, her voice carrying across the distance as she promises she'll meet him safely after the exam concludes. She then commands her assembled group to move out with authority that brooks no argument. Zeke waves calmly at them, his composure unshakable, while someone nearby poses an inevitable question. They wonder aloud if he's genuinely not nervous about facing this trial completely alone. Doesn't the isolation concern him at all? He responds with a faint smile that suggests hidden depths, replying simply that he's perfectly fine before stepping forward into the forest. Freya watches his departure with quiet curiosity, sensing something extraordinary about this particular student. As moonlight spreads its silvery glow across the forest canopy, painting everything in ethereal light, the atmosphere grows increasingly tense back at the staging area. An officer standing beside Freya questions whether this examination might be excessively harsh for students who are still developing their combat abilities. Another officer voices agreement, pointing out that most of this group still severely lacks real combat experience against thinking opponents. He wonders grimly how many will truly manage to endure the full month. Freya reassures them with professional calm that the monsters inhabiting the mountain aren't impossibly strong. They're dangerous but manageable. Combined with solid teamwork strategies, most students should survive the ordeal. The officer nods in tentative agreement, though his expression remains concerned about potential casualties. Freya mutters something under her breath about releasing something, words too quiet for others to catch clearly. The officer asks for reassurance about what she just said, but she immediately brushes it off as nothing important, dismissing his concern. She then commands another group of upperclassmen to head into the jungle and begin their hunting phase of the examination. As this team moves deeper into the shadowed forest, their eyes scanning for vulnerable targets, something catches their attention. They spot what appears to be a lone student moving through the undergrowth. An easy target, isolated and unprotected. One archer among them immediately draws his bow and fires without warning or hesitation. The arrow streaks through the air with deadly precision, but Zeke catches it effortlessly with one hand, his lips curving into an amused smirk. Did they really think it would be that simple? The upperclassmen stare in absolute disbelief, murmuring amongst themselves in confusion. How did a first-year student just catch an arrow like it was nothing? But before they can properly react or formulate a new strategy, the situation spirals completely out of their control. Zeke dashes forward with explosive speed, gesturing mockingly as if inviting them to begin the real game. No more cheap shots from a distance. Meanwhile, in another section of the deadly forest, Celine unleashes her full force against advancing monsters, her attacks decisive and brutal. Another creature attempts to exploit her focus by leaping at her from behind, its fangs bared for a killing strike. Raymond raises his shield at the perfect moment with practiced timing, his defensive posture flawless. He strikes through the beast with his weapon, ending its threat before it can reach his teammate. Lingus charges forward with renewed confidence, his spear piercing cleanly through another monster that dared approach their formation. Leica offers her assessment and praise for their coordinated efforts, but when they turn to glance at her position, seeking her approval, their reactions are priceless. Their eyes widen in shock at the sight before them. A massive pile of dead frog monsters surrounds her position, evidence of carnage they didn't even notice happening. They voice their amazement that she truly cleared that many creatures entirely by herself. She chuckles softly at their surprised expressions, remarking with casual confidence that her 2-star level certainly provides significant advantages in battles like these. He adds an encouraging observation. Both Celine and Raymond have successfully gained their 1-star level since last week's intensive training began. Lingus lowers his head, clearly feeling inadequate as the only team member who hasn't achieved that breakthrough yet. But his companions immediately rush to encourage him, their voices warm with genuine support, telling him firmly that he'll earn his star very soon. It's only a matter of time and continued effort. Leica agrees wholeheartedly, stating with conviction that defeating these monster frogs without possessing even 1 star represents no small feat whatsoever. She praises his flawless spearwork specifically, noting how dramatically his technique has improved after training sessions with Zeke. The transformation is remarkable. She then commands them to head back toward their established base camp before nightfall arrives and visibility becomes a dangerous liability. As they approach their base location, relief washing over them at the prospect of rest, something concerning appears ahead. Leica halts abruptly, her hand raised in warning as she spots a senior student waiting directly in their path. This is no chance encounter. The senior student smirks with predatory confidence, his intentions crystal clear before he even speaks. Leica questions him directly, her voice sharp. Has he come specifically to steal their orbs? The entire group tenses immediately, and Raymond lifts his shield into a defensive position. The senior nods without shame, claiming that the test's true objective for upperclassmen is precisely to steal orbs from younger students. He admits with mild surprise that he didn't expect to encounter Leica's formidable group as his first target. Leica warns him with ice in her voice to leave immediately before they're forced to kill him, stating the obvious. He cannot possibly face all of them alone and hope to win. But before she can act on that threat, 3 more senior students emerge from concealment behind them. They've been surrounded in a carefully planned ambush. The lead opponent unsheathes his sword with a metallic ring that cuts through the tense silence, striking directly at Leica with aggressive intent. He orders her to surrender her orb peacefully. She dodges the blade with fluid grace, and immediately the others rush forward to support her, the battle erupting in full force. Raymond positions his shield strategically to protect his teammates from multiple angles, his his defensive instincts keeping them alive. Celine fights back with impressive strength, her attacks forcing her opponent onto the defensive despite the level difference. Lingus struggles desperately against his assigned opponent, the disparity in their abilities painfully obvious as he fights to resist being overwhelmed. His opponent presses the advantage mercilessly, demanding he hand over his crystal orb and spare himself further punishment. But in this desperate moment, Lingus remembers valuable advice from his training, a conversation when he once asked Zeke how to face opponents far more powerful than himself. Zeke had told him bluntly that winning against 3 or more skilled upperclassmen was functionally impossible through raw strength alone, yet despite that grim assessment, there was still a viable path to victory. Lingus had questioned what method could possibly work under such disadvantageous circumstances, his voice tinged with doubt. Zeke had smiled knowingly and instructed him to focus on exploiting openings in his opponent's defense moments of vulnerability that appear during prolonged combat. When Lingus asked how to find such openings against superior opponents, his confusion genuine, the answer seemed deceptively simple. Zeke told him to endure whatever attacks came his way and keep defending relentlessly until the opponent inevitably exposes a weakness. Patience becomes weapon. The fundamental reality is harsh but true. The weaker fighter cannot force an opening through aggression alone. They must wait for the stronger opponent to create it themselves through overconfidence or exhaustion. Lingus had clenched his fist then, asking with genuine concern whether he could truly endure punishment that long without breaking. Zeke's answer was profound in its simplicity. Endurance itself wins these battles. Defeating someone stronger through patience and timing represents a greater achievement than overwhelming them with raw power, though he added with a slight smile that Laika might be an exception to that rule, her monstrous talent allowing her to break conventional limitations. Zeke had reminded him of the most crucial element. First, believe in himself and his ability to survive. Don't overthink the situation. Just wait patiently and strike decisively when the perfect chance finally appears. Now, applying those lessons in real combat, Lingus grits his teeth and holds his ground despite the pain, his eyes never leaving his opponent's movements. When the opponent finally loosens his guard for just a brief moment, overconfident in his perceived superiority, the opening Lingus has been waiting for materializes. He doesn't hesitate even slightly. He charges forward with everything he has and drives his attack home with precision. His spear pierces straight through his opponent's defense, finding flesh and ending the threat in one perfect strike born from patience and determination. Meanwhile, Laika continues battling her own assigned opponent with relentless aggression. The senior fighter resists admirably but gradually realizes with growing horror that her raw strength surpasses his own despite both possessing 2-star level. How is that possible? She knows with quiet confidence that this advantage stems directly from Zeke's training advice and techniques, gifts that continue paying dividends. She ends the fight decisively with one overwhelming strike that leaves no doubt about the outcome. Immediately concerned for her team, she rushes to check on them, asking urgently if everyone survived without serious injury. They respond with enthusiastic cheers, their spirits high despite the brutal fight. Celine congratulates Lingus specifically with genuine excitement. He announces that he successfully reached 1-star level during that desperate battle, his breakthrough achieved in the crucible of real combat. He stands there in disbelief, barely able to process what just happened. Laika smiles with satisfaction and remarks that with everyone now holding star levels, they possess much better odds of surviving this examination successfully. Her thoughts drift momentarily as she wonders aloud what Zeke might be doing right now in his solo journey through this dangerous forest. At a considerable distance from their location, a girl from the last upperclassmen group runs frantically through the undergrowth, her breathing ragged with terror. She trembles violently, questioning aloud what kind of absolute monster that first-year student truly is. Nothing in their briefing prepared them for this. Around Zeke's position lie the unconscious or groaning bodies of the rest of her team members, scattered like discarded toys after a child's tantrum. Our protagonist stands calmly among them, barely even breathing hard. The surviving upperclassmen are running away at full sprint, screaming desperately to save their own lives. They've encountered something beyond their capabilities, a literal monster wearing a first-year student's face, one who casually dismantled their entire group without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, our protagonist just stands there relaxed, almost disappointed by how easy this was. He calls out to the fleeing cowards mockingly, questioning why they're running away so desperately. The power dynamic has been completely reversed. They're not the hunters anymore, and he's definitely not the prey. These upperclassmen are sprinting faster than Olympic athletes, desperate to escape an inferior first-year student they were supposed to dominate. They came here to hunt him, but the tables have been turned so dramatically it's almost comical. One particularly unlucky upperclassman slips on loose ground and falls hard, his worst nightmare materializing before him. The scene plays out like something from a horror film as he watches Zeke approach with deliberate, unhurried steps, his voice chillingly calm as he orders the fallen student to stand up. He suggests, almost mockingly, that the upperclassmen should at least attempt to fight back, rather than cowering pathetically on the ground. The psychological pressure proves too much. The terrified student's eyes roll back as he faints from pure fear. This must be how Batman's enemies feel when they see him emerge from shadows, that same primal terror. Zeke finds himself genuinely disappointed by how effortlessly he dismantled this entire group, especially considering how confident and aggressive they acted at the beginning when they attempted to ambush him all at once. His sharp instincts suddenly detect something. Someone is spying on him from a concealed observation spot, watching everything that just transpired. The person conducting surveillance is revealed to be an upper dragon captain, someone of significantly higher rank observing this examination. This captain stands stunned, barely able to process what his eyes just witnessed. A mere first-year student completely wiping the floor with multiple experienced upperclassmen. Even more unsettling, that same kid somehow detected his concealed presence and called him out for spying, displaying awareness that shouldn't be possible at his level. He returns to deliver his report to the scarlet-haired beauty who commands this operation, her presence as commanding as it is intimidating. Her subordinates begin their briefing from the very beginning of the trial period. Within just 1 week of the test duration, a staggering 32% of students have already dropped out, unable to handle the brutal conditions. However, the ones who manage to survive are rapidly adapting to their harsh environments with impressive resilience, which means the dropout numbers likely won't climb much higher than this. But the moment she inquires about the condition of the upperclassmen conducting the hunt, something shifts in the air. Her subordinates visibly hesitate before responding, their reluctance speaking volumes about whatever news they're about to deliver. The same observer who witnessed everything firsthand reveals something shocking. The upperclassmen are literally running for their lives through that forest, scattered and terrified. The instructor finds herself completely starstruck by his words, her composure momentarily cracking with disbelief. The situation seems utterly baffling because there aren't any monsters in that forest beyond the upperclassmen's capability to handle, nothing strong enough to threaten their lives this severely. So the burning question that demands an answer is simple. Why are they running in absolute terror? The observer blurts out one name that explains everything. It's Zeke. He is transformed into their worst nightmare, the catastrophe that haunts their every step, single-handedly hunting them down like insects beneath his boot with ruthless efficiency. Even considering that Zeke is the patriarch's own son, the kid operates on a level that defies normal assessment. He's not merely a prodigy by conventional standards. He's a once-in-a-generation talent, one that can only be classified as a literal monster for someone his age and level. The realization dawns on everyone present that his strategy from the very beginning was calculated perfection, moving alone specifically because he knew he'd unleash absolute hell upon anyone who crossed his path. To put it simply, our protagonist never even entertained the notion of being the hunted prey in this examination. He was thrilled by the prospect of becoming the hunter instead, reversing the power dynamic completely. Her factual praise of Zeke's abilities entices curiosity from the other members of her assembled squad, until suddenly, they notice the arrival of something they've been anxiously waiting for, a massive crate being transported to their location. Freya instructs the laborers to unload it immediately on this exact spot. The rest of her squad members begin questioning internally what kind of insanity she's planning now. This woman has been consistently increasing the examination's difficulty beyond reasonable limits, and now she apparently intends to release some kind of monster at the 3-star level, something not even the upperclassmen should be able to withstand without serious casualties. The sadistic instructor assures them calmly that she's made certain crucial adjustments to ensure this remains somewhat fair, though her definition of fair is clearly flexible. First and most importantly, the creature has been specifically conditioned to target only students who've achieved 2-star level or beyond, meaning younger students without stars, or those with merely 1 star won't be affected by its rampage at all. But the question that burns in everyone's mind is simply, why is she escalating things this dramatically? Interestingly, Freya reveals something that silences all objections. It's a direct order from Lord Eldragon himself, the absolute head of their family. She's genuinely curious about the outcome of this modified exam, her interest particularly focused on the so-called monster that Zeke has apparently become during this trial. She wonders aloud with barely concealed anticipation whether the kid can handle something of this caliber, instructing her subordinates to release the deadly creature precisely at dawn's first light. When that fateful dawn finally arrives, bringing with it promises of chaos and revelation, the atmosphere changes instantly. Lengus and Celine are the first to sense something wrong. They instantly notice the ground beneath their feet beginning to tremble with increasing intensity. Lady Laika's razor-sharp combat instincts immediately inform her that something is approaching their position, something even nastier and more dangerous than the upperclassmen they've already faced. At first, Lengus logically assumes it must be some kind of extraordinarily large monster causing these tremors, but Laika knows with bone-deep certainty that whatever approaches them is absolutely terrifying. The violent rumbling of the ground continues escalating, startling all the nearby students as worry transforms rapidly into fear throughout their scattered camps. Laika's eyes widen with sudden realization. The massive tree directly behind their position is toppling down toward them. She roars desperately for everyone to move out of the way immediately. Luckily, her quick warning allows her to physically protect Celine from the falling debris, while Raymond manages to guard Lengus with his shield, ensuring none of them sustain serious injuries from the impact. Still shaken by the sudden collapse of that ancient tree, Leica grips her sword tightly, preparing herself to challenge whatever threat caused this destruction. Meanwhile, Lingus and the others simply stare at the approaching creature with eyes full of primal, paralyzing fear. The towering monstrosity before them is a terrifying stone golem, something they never imagined encountering on this supposedly controlled examination mountain. It's like receiving questions completely outside your study syllabus during the most important exam of your life. Meanwhile, our protagonist occupies a completely different location, casually sitting atop a pile of defeated monster corpses and unconscious upperclassmen like a throne of conquest. Veterans of Manhwa will recognize this iconic scene's similarity to certain legendary moments from other stories. Anyway, this guy is bored out of his mind. He's grown so overwhelmingly strong that literally no one in this examination can match up to his level, acting like he's achieved untouchable status among his peers. But then, without warning, he senses an ominous presence materializing in the distance, something that makes his instincts scream danger. This isn't just any ordinary monster. It radiates power exceeding even 2-star levels, which makes him wonder if the instructor is attempting to send him some kind of coded message or challenge. Still, releasing something this powerful seems weird and excessive against students who are merely 2-star level at their absolute best. It's overkill by any reasonable measure. Besides that obvious concern, Instructor Freya absolutely should have informed all participants about this creature at the examination's beginning if it was part of the official parameters. But then understanding crashes over him like cold water. This sadistic woman released it deliberately without warning, making him intensely curious about what exactly she and Lord Balza are planning. However, despite the concerning implications, this represents the perfect opportunity to finally cure his crushing boredom. Newly motivated, our protagonist leaps off from his pile of defeated victims with renewed purpose, making the 3-star monster his next hunting target. Unfortunately, he's going to have to spend considerable time traveling there since the creature's location is quite far from his current spot. Back at the site of the golem's brutal onslaught, Celine attempts to slash the stone monster with her sword, putting her full strength behind the strike. Of course, her blade doesn't seem to inflict any form of visible damage whatsoever on its impossibly hard body. It's like striking solid bedrock. She doesn't leave even a single scratch on its surface despite her best efforts. Raymond tries next, using his shield offensively to bash the creature. Again, absolutely no scratch appears on its dense exterior. Finally, Lady Leica decides it's time to get serious, channeling her full power in a display reminiscent of lightning-fast techniques from legendary warriors. She activates her signature lightning-style thunder flash technique, electricity crackling violently around her blade. That ultimate move she just unleashed barely manages to chip the creature's exterior, a tiny fragment of success after such enormous effort. This confirms her worst suspicions. Only attacks infused with fully manifested aura can actually damage the golem's outer shell in any meaningful way, which means anyone below her 2-star rank is practically useless in this fight. Lingus desperately begs her for some kind of workable plan while she mentally rallies herself, formulating their only option. She explains her admittedly ridiculous strategy. She'll play decoy to distract the monster's attention, creating an opening that allows the rest of them to escape with their lives. None of them want to follow the suicidal plan because it means abandoning her to face this thing alone. But Leica basically calls them out with brutal honesty. They're weak combatants who will only obstruct her fighting capability and get in her way during the battle. She managed to inflict only a minuscule amount of damage even after landing her most powerful aura-enhanced attack, which means the rest of them literally cannot accomplish anything meaningful with their current strength, no matter how much they believe in the power of friendship and teamwork. Her words cut deep because they're undeniably correct. Though it's painfully true that they cannot take this monster down together, Raymond suddenly steps forward with his shield raised, vouching to support her positioning just to ensure she can land all her attacks without obstruction. Leica initially thinks this represents a recklessly foolish move that will only get him killed, but something in his determination gives her pause. Then Lingus and Celine also declare their readiness to support her unconditionally, promising to create opportunities just as long as she can deal actual damage to their enemy. Their unshakable determination through the power of their bond convinces her to accept their help. She orders her loyal friends to provide cover while she prepares her strongest technique. Lady Leica begins charging her most devastating attack, power building around her like a gathering storm of pure destruction. She blitzes past her teammates with thunderous aura crackling in her wake, moving faster than the eye can properly track. The golem reacts with surprising speed, attempting to brutally smash her into the ground with its massive stone fist. But Raymond positions himself perfectly to block the tremendous weight of that devastating blow, his shield bearing the impact. Even with his defensive expertise, the force of blocking just a single hit stuns his entire body, temporarily paralyzing his limbs with shock. He takes a necessary timeout to recover while Lingus and Celine immediately tag in, distracting the golem with their repeated coordinated attacks from multiple angles. This creates the perfect opening for their main damage dealer. Leica launches herself at the golem from behind with a spectacular aerial slash. She activates her most powerful technique, Thunder Spirit, great sword arts at maximum output. She hammers the behemoth with concentrated divine thunder that illuminates the entire forest clearing, the sound of impact echoing for miles. Upon the conclusion of that earth-shattering attack, smoke obscures everything, and the monster seems nowhere to be found in the devastation. Lingus rushes to her side immediately, catching Leica as she staggers, clearly exhausted and disoriented. She channeled absolutely all of her remaining energy just to activate that final trump card technique, but at least they apparently managed to take out the terrifying monster, so despite her exhaustion she feels happy knowing Raymond and the others survived unharmed. But that assumption happens to be their biggest and most dangerous misunderstanding. The golem suddenly emerges from the clearing smoke completely intact, extending its massive hand toward the unguarded and vulnerable Leica. In the end, the monster successfully snatches her within its crushing grasp while her friends stand frozen, utterly useless to provide any meaningful help. Deline watches in absolute terror, unable to comprehend how the monster is still functioning perfectly fine even after taking what was essentially a miniature nuclear strike. Lingus desperately wants to play the hero and charges in recklessly with his spear raised, determined to rescue her no matter the cost. But the golem casually snatches him away as well with its other hand, capturing him effortlessly like picking flowers. This causes Lingus to scream in frustration and worry, his voice breaking with desperation as he struggles uselessly against the stone grip. Suddenly, without any warning, a gigantic tree is launched through the air all the way from somewhere distant, whipping its way toward the golem like a massive spear thrown by divine hands. The monster takes the full crushing weight of the tree directly, the impact simultaneously freeing both Leica and Lingus from its deadly grasp in the process. And just like that, Zeke arrives with his characteristically dramatic entrance, finally joining all the fun he's been missing. He doesn't even bother checking immediately on his friend's conditions, too focused on feeling genuine excitement for his next victim's inevitable demise. He absolutely knew that Leica's group was desperately trying to defeat this monster, but found himself severely limited by distance, unable to reach them in time despite his best running speed. In his prime condition from his previous life, he would have instantly teleported across vast distances with reality-breaking speed. Even though Leica's group demonstrates pretty impressive teamwork and skill, they simply cannot beat a 3-star level monster through conventional means. It's fundamentally more like a desperate game of survival for them, a countdown timer until they eventually get completely wiped out. Knowing that he couldn't run fast enough to arrive before tragedy struck, our protagonist decided to experiment with something completely new and unconventional. He grabs hold of a massive tree, pulling it straight from the ground with his bare hands, showcasing absolutely insane levels of raw strength for someone inhabiting a child's body. Then this kid proceeds to send the entire tree flying through the air toward God knows where, treating a massive piece of ancient wood like a throwing weapon. He genuinely hoped it would become an improvised ballistic missile and successfully hit the monster from this impossible distance. Zeke felt really satisfied about what he accomplished just now. Because this tree-throwing technique actually represents something much deeper and more sophisticated than simple brute force. Its practical application of advanced principles. He reflects on the dragon nurturing arts, the Eldragon combat manual given to students before undertaking this examination. It's technically an ordinary technique booklet, not really representing a proper martial style in itself, but rather functioning as a comprehensive guide to unlock more efficient methods of channeling strength. The valuable thing is that it proved incredibly helpful to our protagonist because in his past life as the first head, he took extensive advantage of long-range attack techniques that other warriors dismissed as impractical. Back in the present moment, with the immediate crisis temporarily resolved, the situation stabilizes. Cheerfully greets his friends, who stand there completely shocked to see him arrive so dramatically. Lingus immediately reminds him frantically about the extremely dangerous golem that's currently trying to murder them all without mercy. But instead of showing proper fear or suggesting retreat, our protagonist feels genuinely amused by the prospect of challenging such a powerful monster. This is exactly what he's been craving. Interestingly, upon closer inspection, the creature doesn't appear to possess any conventional life force despite radiating such overwhelming presence. But here's where things get truly impressive. When the golem attacks, this kid catches its massive fist with a single palm, stopping the momentum completely. Thanks to his genius-level battle intelligence and experience, he can instantly analyze the situation. He determines right away that the monster won't be significantly affected by normal physical-based attacks without aura enhancement. Though he could easily obliterate it completely by using his aura at full power, he deliberately doesn't want to finish things so quickly. Where's the fun in that? Leica watches in stunned disbelief as he practically toys with the same monster that gave their entire team a desperate run for their money and nearly killed them all. The golem attempts to crush him completely by slamming down with both of its massive hands simultaneously. Zeke successfully blocks the devastating slam with apparent ease, though he does feel some mild level of discomfort from the impact's tremendous force. He calmly tells his friends to stay completely out of this fight as they could get seriously hurt if they remain in the combat zone. This sensible warning causes them to immediately flee from the dangerous area, giving him the space he needs. Now that he doesn't have to constantly worry about accidentally injuring his friends while going all out, Zeke shifts his weight strategically and ends up effortlessly flinging a monster 10 times his physical size through the air like it weighs nothing. He still needs to figure out how to properly deal with the creature's incredibly hard outer shell, wondering curiously if the golem possesses the same level of sturdiness on its interior structure. In order to test his developing theory about internal vulnerability, he begins powering up a concentrated punch. He blazingly hammers his fist directly into the golem's body with explosive force. This devastating move represents Form 1 of the legendary Dragon Destroyer combat arts. He strategically combines it with a second-style burst technique specifically designed to pulverize targets from within. The burst aspect of his attack doesn't merely focus on breaking through the protective shell, but actually works to systematically crush the creature's interior structure from the inside out. And just like that, with a single, perfectly executed move, our protagonist completely one-shots the supposedly invincible creature, having gained some genuine enjoyment and satisfaction from the brief experience it provided. 1 full month passes following the dramatic conclusion of the brutal examination, and the scene shifts to the magnificent main estate of the prestigious Eldragon family, where the results will finally be revealed. Here at the imposing main estate, Zeke finds himself forcefully summoned, a development that irritates him considerably, though he masks his annoyance behind practiced indifference. He reflects on the conclusion of that brutal earlier examination, acknowledging that nothing particularly significant transpired after the dramatic golem incident that nearly claimed his friends' lives. Zeke's 7-year-old class cohort experienced devastating attrition, with dropout rates climbing to a staggering 70% by the trial's end. However, the resilient members who somehow survived became intimately familiar with death's cold touch and ended up achieving the crucial 1-star level through sheer necessity. Shortly after the test's official conclusion, Zeke was forcefully summoned through direct order to meet the Patriarch, his biological father, a man he's never properly encountered. While walking through the grand hall toward his fate, he mutters complaints under his breath about this inconvenient summons while Freya desperately reminds his stubborn self to show the Patriarch proper respect and deference. Freya practically roars at him with barely contained frustration for completely obliterating the upperclassmen's examination, attacking and hunting them down relentlessly when such aggressive action wasn't remotely required by the test parameters. Because of his overwhelming dominance, not a single one of those upperclassmen managed to acquire even 1 orb for their personal graduation test. They'll have to retake the entire humiliating examination from scratch. That's how thoroughly he dismantled their confidence and capabilities. Freya grows increasingly frustrated with his reckless actions, practically begging him to fix his disrespectful tone and attitude before he meets the family head face to face. The two of them finally arrive at the Patriarch's imposing chamber door, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken tension. The reason she keeps desperately lecturing him to tone down his natural arrogance and adopt some humility is brutally simple. If he doesn't manage that basic courtesy, something terrible will happen. He will literally get eviscerated from existence without ceremony or mercy. Lord Eldragon has earned his reputation as a ruthless man with absolutely zero regard for children's feelings or safety. Blood relation means nothing to him. Freya genuinely doesn't want to witness Zeke getting slaughtered like some disobedient animal. Even our typically fearless protagonist feels genuinely intimidated after hearing her grave warning delivered with such conviction. Before entering the Patriarch's private chambers, Freya announces her rank and mission intention with proper military formality. The voice from within grants permission to enter, cold and impersonal. The two of them step inside together, crossing a threshold that feels impossibly significant. Our nonchalant young warrior stares directly at the imposing man sitting behind his massive desk. His very first proper encounter with the legendary head of the Eldragon family, the father he's never known. Lord Eldragon radiates mild annoyance from his position of power, his expression unreadable yet somehow threatening. Without even extending basic greetings or acknowledging their presence warmly, the Patriarch immediately demands to know why this child attacked his upperclassmen so viciously. Responding with characteristic casualness that borders on insolence, Zeke expresses his own annoyance right back, questioning whether he actually broke any explicitly stated rules by choosing to attack those students. His completely unbothered response visibly baffles the Patriarch, who clearly expected fear or remorse. The boy continues arguing his position logically. The only official condition of the examination was to survive 1 full month with the crystal orb remaining intact. No other specific details, restrictions, or conditions were mentioned in the briefing, so he simply followed exactly what he was tasked to accomplish. Zeke directly challenges his father's authority, stating bluntly that any additional rules should have been explicitly mentioned before the exam began if they mattered. Freya's horrified facial expression tells observers everything they need to know. She's absolutely terrified because just moments earlier she warned him not to argue or challenge the Patriarch. She even desperately tries talking some sense into his stubborn head, her voice urgent with worry. But the boy's father suddenly releases an ominous aura that fills the entire chamber, terrifying Freya into paralyzed silence. Just the sheer, overwhelming weight of his pressure proves enough to physically knock her down to her knees, unable to withstand such concentrated power. With this kind of suffocating pressure being unleashed, Freya thinks with absolute certainty that Zeke is about to be murdered right before her eyes. Instead, something impossible occurs. The boy doesn't experience any visible effects whatsoever and actually mocks his father again for resorting to such petty intimidation, moves at the slightest hint of agitation. The patriarch finds himself genuinely stunned to witness his son completely unaffected by pressure that should have crushed him instantly. He probes further with dangerous curiosity, asking the boy directly how he managed to defeat not only an entire fleet of trained upperclassmen in combat, but also a 3-star level golem that should have been impossible for his rank. If that wasn't unbelievable enough by itself, this 7-year-old child just casually no-sold his overwhelming pressure aura too, standing tall while a trained warrior collapsed. Nothing about this situation makes logical sense in the patriarch's experienced eyes. How could a mere boy manifest such damning power at his age? Zeke realizes that the focus has shifted to interrogating the source of his extraordinary strength, and his father expects detailed explanations. Instead of explaining anything properly or revealing his secrets, he just dismissively calls it his personal genius, natural talent that can't be taught or replicated. Two alphas meet on equal ground, both father and son eyeing each other down with unwavering intensity, neither willing to submit first. Lord Eldragon finally admits with grudging respect that the boy's attitude is indeed rash and confrontational, just like the detailed report stated, but ultimately that won't matter since he still managed to achieve the impossible by beating a 3-star golem. His earned reward consists of choosing one item from the legendary Dragon Treasury, or alternatively gaining access to the restricted second floor of the Dragon Hall, a choice between these two incredible options. What surprises Freya most profoundly is watching this terrifying man transition from nearly killing his own son with murderous pressure to now offering generous rewards within moments. Let's examine both extraordinary options in detail. The Dragon Hall and Dragon Treasury function as sacred vaults, each containing over 1,000 years' worth of invaluable collectibles accumulated ever since the legendary era of Gilphus himself, the first Dragon King. These repositories include countless books and manuscripts, even containing forbidden knowledge banned in the present era for being too dangerous. The collections also contain the greatest weapons ever forged, legendary artifacts of immense power, and virtually every possible item one could need for cultivation or combat. These facilities represent the family's ultimate treasury and greatest inheritance, but they're monitored so strictly with such powerful security measures that only a select handful of exceptionally accomplished students ever receive permission to enter inside. The second floor of Dragon Hall holds a particularly special status, requiring tremendous personal accomplishments for access. Freya literally cannot believe what she's witnessing unfold before her eyes. This kid acted like an absolute disrespectful brat throughout the entire meeting, and he still received generous rewards from his notoriously strict father. To deliberately provoke the patriarch further, Zeke boldly taunts his father to simply give him access to both rewards instead of forcing him to choose. Lord Eldragon tersely commands him to leave his chambers immediately, but the defiant kid openly disobeys this direct order and complains that he's still got more important questions to ask before departing. Freya moves with maternal instinct, positioning herself like a worried mother desperately protecting her endangered child from imminent danger. But even as she physically drags him toward the exit, the boy manages to leave one final devastating statement hanging in the air. Zeke humiliates his father with cutting words. The more he tries to forcefully subdue his emotions and maintain that cold facade, the further he will drift from ever truly becoming the strongest warrior possible. In that profound moment, Lord Eldragon witnesses something extraordinary. A manifestation of Zeke's true hidden might materializes briefly, revealing potential that makes him fundamentally equal to the patriarch himself in raw talent. Freya immediately shuts down any further conversation and physically drags the boy away from potential catastrophe, leaving Lord Eldragon alone to reflect deeply on the kind of overwhelming presence he just sensed from his own child. In the following scene, the frustrated instructor is ranting yet again, shouting at this impossible idiot for acting so disrespectfully toward their supreme leader, completely ignoring all her urgent warnings and advice. Zeke claims he genuinely tried his best to remain respectful, but ultimately gave up on maintaining that facade. Hilariously, this actually represents him significantly holding back his true thoughts, which makes observers wonder what else he could have possibly said if unleashed. Freya simply doesn't understand why he consistently treats regular teachers with proper respect and courtesy, but apparently cannot show even basic deference to his own biological father. Considering the boy's frightening strength combined with his rocky, confrontational personality, she's beginning to view him as anything but an ordinary child, even starting to genuinely question his real identity and origins. Trolling her confusion deliberately, Zeke states with infuriating simplicity that he's just himself. Nothing more complicated than that. Freya internalizes her knowledge that everyone born into their prestigious family drinks the ancient dragon's sacred blood upon birth, a ritual that binds them to the family hierarchy. The head of the family naturally carries the concentrated might of a superior dragon bloodline within him, which means by fundamental nature alone, younger members absolutely shouldn't possess the ability to defy his overwhelming wrath or resist his authority. And yet this same boy managed to not only directly challenge his father without consequence, but also hold his ground confidently against impossible pressure. He represents something else entirely, something she cannot figure out despite her experience. Growing suspicious, she mentally resolves to secretly check his birth records for anomalies. But for now, she strategically changes topics, asking him which of the two extraordinary rewards he'll ultimately choose. Putting on an adorable pleading expression, he picks both options with shameless confidence, much to Freya's immediate annoyance and exasperation. In the end, after weighing his options carefully, Zeke comes to his final decision. He chooses the path of pursuing knowledge above material treasures. Having reincarnated 1,000 years into an unfamiliar future, comes with a massive gulf in his understanding of the current age's developments and changes. That's precisely why he's intensely curious to discover the advancement of medicine, technology, and martial techniques during his absence. His biggest admirer, Lengus, celebrates enthusiastically upon hearing that Zeke gained permission to enter the legendary Dragon Hall. Both young warriors shared genuine excitement about this opportunity. The possibilities seem endless and thrilling. Lengus already successfully learned fundamental dragon slaying and nurturing spear arts during his training, but gaining access to the Dragon Hall represents an even greater opportunity for him to master entirely new martial art styles. Lady Laika arrives to join them, sharing important information that they need to act quickly and efficiently because there's also a strict time limit imposed on their visit. The first floor contains basic-level materials and resources, and visitors are explicitly told they can borrow only one book at a single time, which means they absolutely need to choose wisely and make every moment count. During their conversation, Laika learns about Zeke's personal reward situation. He was given the choice between the treasury's material wealth or the hall's knowledge repository. She expresses genuine surprise that he ultimately picked the Dragon Hall instead of choosing a powerful weapon or valuable artifact that could immediately enhance his combat capabilities. Our protagonist would have definitely selected differently if not for the crucial fact that he's fallen way behind on understanding the knowledge and developments of the current era. Still, Laika confidently thinks nothing contained in that vast library could possibly surpass her treasured Thunder Spirit Greatsword, art techniques in value or effectiveness. While she enthusiastically praises her own abilities, Zeke mentally zones out from the conversation. In the next scene, the stern library supervisor formally informs them that they possess only 5 hours total for accessing the hall's resources. It proves difficult to determine objectively whether this duration should be considered generous or restrictive. Regardless, Laika quickly comes up with a practical strategy. Each person should pick one specific book they want to borrow and take home, then use the remaining time efficiently to read as many other restricted books as possible that cannot be borrowed. Fast readers would obviously benefit tremendously here, but Lengus expresses particular interest in thoroughly studying a martial arts manual, hoping to absorb its contents within 3 focused hours. Choosing the right book proves incredibly difficult for each individual person, especially when standing inside a hall as monumentally grand and extensive as this legendary repository. As they're magically teleported inside the Dragon Hall's interior, the party members become absolutely ecstatic at witnessing the overwhelming glory of this sacred place. The reality exceeds even Zeke's considerable expectations far more dramatically than he imagined possible, the sheer scale stunning him momentarily. He sets his determined sights on obtaining knowledge from books that will completely knock the metaphorical wind out of him with revelation. And so begins an intensive reading experience unlike anything they've encountered before. Zeke absolutely loses himself the second he gets his eager hands on the ancient books lining these shelves. He's frantically blitzing through dense content related to advanced magic theory and chaos energy manipulation at incredible speed. There's simply too much invaluable information available for him to consider giving up or slowing down. Every page reveals new secrets. 1,000 years of absence have left an incredible, undeniable mark on this world's development and knowledge. Turns out that during his long absence, nearly 900 years into the past, a gigantic dimensional crack violently shook their entire reality to its foundations, creating a permanent dimensional barrier called a rift that changed everything forever. From this catastrophic tear emerged the chaotic otherworld, the chaos realm known as Konsei, a place of nightmares made manifest in their dimension. This parallel world contained horrifying monsters, birthed directly from the primal element of chaos itself. And in desperate order to resist their relentless wrath and prevent extinction, the people of Zeke's world were forced to develop primal energies within their bodies as defense. The Eldragon family shouldered enormous responsibility for aiding all of humanity against the endless tides of chaos attempting to consume their world. This desperate cooperation allowed many powerful bonds to form between previously rival families on blood-soaked battlefields. 4 exceptionally powerful warriors ended up marrying members of the main Eldragon house through these alliances, which created the Typhon, Fafnir, Leviathan, and Bahamut factions as distinct branches. They're now respectfully considered the four great Eldragon families supporting the main house, and suddenly everything makes perfect sense. All of this chaos and transformation originated from a completely different dimension breaching their reality. But the most fascinating part that truly stands out to our protagonist is the dramatic evolution of magic systems and techniques during his absence. With the forced connection to a dark, chaotic reality came revolutionary new kinds of power manipulation. Unfortunately, despite his thorough searching, he cannot find any book specifically related to the detailed contents of that particular technique, which seems suspicious, especially when something this historically brilliant should definitely be hailed as an important part of recorded history. His vocal excitement grows so loud and enthusiastic that he unavoidably draws the supervisor's stern attention, who insists firmly that the boy maintain quiet while reading in this sacred space. He discovers mentions of something that can apparently be activated and used via voice commands alone, but the frustrating problem is that aside from referencing ordinary primal energy as its foundation, he cannot determine what makes this technique special or revolutionary. Suddenly, without any warning, all of his carefully stacked books begin floating mysteriously in a glowing trail of yellow energy, levitating entirely on their own through invisible force. Zeke absolutely cannot contain his shocked reaction. He finds himself thoroughly amused and fascinated by witnessing this technique in action. This is exactly what he's been searching for. The supervisor tells him to be quiet yet again with growing irritation. But Zeke simply cannot contain his explosive reaction while standing on the verge of experiencing a completely new level of potential growth. While he was busy enthusiastically wasting precious time being vocally excited about his discovery, disaster strikes without warning. The library's defensive systems suddenly activate, closing in on his position with alarming speed and precision. Invisible threads of concentrated ether materialize from nowhere and firmly restrain his body, binding him completely. Zeke barely manages to hold himself together physically while somehow sticking his landing after being forcefully ejected, questioning in genuine confusion what exactly just happened to trigger this response. Our protagonist desperately wants to learn this same fascinating ether manipulation technique and actually demands the supervisor use it again so he can properly observe and analyze the mechanics. Even Lengus cannot understand what's happening with his friend's bizarre behavior. Meanwhile, Laika watches in complete confusion, wondering why Zeke alone got violently yeeted out of the library section, unlike the rest of their group who remained undisturbed. On a more positive note, Lengus reports that he successfully found an intriguing martial arts manual that he decided to borrow. It's called the Cloud Water Spear Technique, and he's excited to master it. Then there's Celine, who learned a valuable movement art alongside the elegant Wind Blossom sword technique during her study session. Raymond acquired his fair share of knowledge by practicing the Eldragon Guardian sword technique while inside the library's training space. He even managed to obtain a specialized book for improving his shield-wielding skills. Basically, without realizing the irony, they ended up learning the exact same foundational martial arts that Zeke himself originally created during his previous life, techniques he developed almost casually while experimenting. Finally, he turns to ask Laika directly, genuinely hoping to learn what valuable knowledge she managed to gain from this experience. She proudly reveals a rare book containing the heavy wave greatsword technique that the legendary 15th Lord personally improved and refined to near perfection. This marks Zeke's second time hearing specific mentions about another 15th generation head, making him intensely wonder what makes that particular generation so historically special and accomplished. The records indicate that the 15th Lord bears direct responsibility for creating the foundational Dragon Slayer combat arts that became legendary. Now, even though our protagonist personally made countless techniques that eventually became important, preserved manuscripts in this hall's collection, there's an interesting pattern. A significant number of them exist as improved versions of what he originally created centuries ago. This means the mysterious 15th Lord is directly responsible for their advancement and refinement, taking crude foundations and transforming them into perfected arts. The quality of these improvements genuinely impresses even someone as experienced and knowledgeable as Zeke himself. Whoever this 15th Lord was, they possessed remarkable insight into martial arts refinement. At first, when he initially arrived at this academy, he genuinely thought his school life would be nothing but endlessly filled with crushing boredom and unchallenging mediocrity. But now, after discovering how much the world has evolved and how many mysteries remain unsolved, he finds himself genuinely excited for the journey still to come. There's so much left to explore and master. 5 years have passed since that pivotal moment. Here, a now 12-year-old Laika searches around the academy grounds with purpose, her eyes scanning the familiar pathways to locate Zeke and the rest of their close-knit group of friends. She eventually learns from Lengus, who's passing by with training equipment, that our protagonist is currently spending his time at the training grounds as usual. Speaking of those very training grounds where countless hours have been spent honing their skills, Zeke currently finds himself squaring off in what appears to be a serious sparring match against 3 of his longtime friends simultaneously, a challenge that would overwhelm most students but merely serves as warm-up exercise for him.